Ableton Live 12 is coming out in a few days. Probably already been released when you're watching this, and you have a lot of great new features in there. New MIDI clip editing, new audio effects, new audio effect raw, and a new instrument called Melt. And you have one great feature I want to tell you something about in this video, which is called scale awareness. Hi, I'm Toby from abletondrummer.com. I do Max for Live devices, meaning I do solutions for Ableton Live or some things which are not natively possible. So this video is a bit more complex. I have done one before where I overlooked something, and I just thought it would be nicer to do the whole video again and to give you a full insight. So three purposes on this video here. One is to introduce and to show you the new scale awareness feature in Ableton Live 12, and especially to show you how it is implemented and how to use it, and maybe how not to use it. In second approach here is to show you a few Max for Live devices I developed for automating the scale awareness, monitoring the scale awareness, triggering different settings for the scale awareness. And third approach is here, I actually developed a different alternative scale awareness technique, which is meant for using things live and using group of tracks, having them changing multiple groups of tracks, for example MIDI tracks, to change the scale presets here and do that independent. Okay, so first of all, what is scale awareness? So we have those scales in music theory, and especially for people who are starting out, it can be a bit challenging to understand the relation of that. So scale awareness in Ableton Live 12 can be a good help for that if you stick to one scale and set this one scale at the beginning, because if you change stuff later on, things can get a little bit messy if you don't know the problems or the technique, how it is being set up. So let us just quickly start. So first device here for the scale awareness is the monitoring scale awareness. So you got this top bar here where you can set the scale and activate it and set it to different scales here, but it is a little bit small, so I have this big pop-up window here which you can make really big if you need to, and it's really good for this tutorial to see, oh, which scale are we actually in at this moment. So if I set a scale, for example, let us set C major for the beginning. So when I now create a new MIDI clip on a MIDI track, this is just an empty MIDI track here, you can see I can double click on an empty clip slot and it will automatically activate and take over the current settings I set up here for the scale awareness, and it will, the new created clip, a new recording, or a new created clip via double clicking on an empty clip slot will be set to this scale. So scale awareness will be set on, it's activated, and the scale I put in, C major, is set for this clip. So you can now, and that's maybe a really good thing here for people who are starting out, you could highlight the scale in this clip. You can even set all notes to the scale, so you only see those scales here. If you're putting in MIDI and you're having a wrong note, a note which is not in the scale, you can even hit the fit to scale here, and it will repitch all MIDI notes which are not in the scale to the scale. So let me just quickly show you. So if we are using a note here, and now if we hit fit to scale, boom, it will be transposed. So this note here just moved one down. Let's do this again. So I got an A sharp 3 here, I hit fit to scale, and now it's in the scale. So that's pretty handy. So now if I use multiple, if I want to use multiple scale settings for one Ableton Live set, I'm kind of like saying, well, actually then maybe you don't want to use scale awareness, because things can get quite messy quickly. Because The scale awareness setting here, and we can see that will change depending on the selection of the clip here. So actually those clips here I set up, you can see if I just select the different clips here which have different scale awareness settings, the global scale here, the global scale setting will change. So it can become an issue if you use the second part of scale awareness here, which is for MIDI effects and the melt, the new instrument from Ableton Live, from Ableton, which is introduced in Ableton Live 12, can be set to listen to things here as well. And if you want to play those things live, those things will change here as well. So let me show you what I mean. So I got a track here where I got this E piano, and I got a scale MIDI effect sitting in front of here, and the scale awareness is being turned on. And as soon as I turn this on, you can see it will change the pitch settings, the scale pitch settings here to what's being set in the current, or what's the current selection of the scale awareness setting is. So if I, for example, play a C major chord now, CE3, everything is fine. So I'm playing those notes live. So if I now select a clip, and that could mean any clip anywhere, and this clip has a scale awareness setting, for example, this clip here, and now it's C minor. So what happens now on my live input on a completely different MIDI track here, I play the same notes. My E is being set down to E flat because my track here, this scale device here, or a melt for example as well, is listening to the scale awareness setting here, and I just changed this only via selecting a clip. So this can become pretty complicated and pretty like, why is my input playing those wrong notes, or the notes I don't want to, because you just changed the scale awareness setting for those things, for all tracks here, for all MIDI effects here who don't have a MIDI clip playing. Okay, so one more thing. So the selection here, actually that's the same for arrangement view and session view. And if I just change the view here, it will always take the current selected view and the current selected clip inside this view. So funny enough, if I'm in C major in session here, and now if I just switch the view here to arrangement, it will change the scale awareness settings and selection here, because in arrangement view I have a clip selected here which isn't even active. Like this, I mean this track isn't even active, but just selecting a clip here will communicate to the global settings of your scale awareness. So this implementation is a little bit, I don't know, because this even is the case for MIDI clips which aren't active. So if you don't know, you can activate and deactivate clips, audio and MIDI clips, by selecting the clip and hitting 0. So if you, for example, have the monitor set to in, those clips won't be, probably you can't easily see those clips now here when you don't have a name in there. And even if those clips are and now it becomes even worse to see and to notice that you actually have a clip in here. So you might just select this clip slot here without noticing that you actually have clips in there, but it will change your settings here. So there is one way on how to, you could say, block that the scale, in this example, the scale MIDI effect will change to the scale which you select via the top selection here, or via selecting a MIDI clip, because it's talking bidirectional, so selecting a MIDI clip would change the top setting here of the scale awareness. But you don't want to have this happen for the scale device here. So what you can do is you could have a MIDI clip playing here, and I need to set this MIDI clip right. So C sharp is my example here for C sharp minor for the scale. So if this MIDI clip is playing, you know, I get the C transposed to a B, and if I now touch something, it would still stay in the C sharp minor scale here, because this clip, a clip is playing, and a playing clip will define the scale, or the playing clip will define the scale you're using here, even for all of the MIDI effects here on this track, if they are listening to the if they are listening to the clip scale awareness here. Okay, so this integration is quite interesting, and I think, like, okay, I was expecting, like, hey, that's cool, scale awareness, so I can quickly change the whole scale and the whole settings of my full Ableton Live set, maybe of just one song. So especially this is a use case for production, when I say, like, well, maybe I just want to quickly hear how this tune might sound in a minor scale. I've maybe started it in a major scale and I want to set it to a minor scale. So you are able to change those clips, but you have to select all the clips here. So now you can see that you will see different settings are set for those clips here. You are able to activate the scale awareness for all those clips you have currently selected, and then set them all to a different scale. So this is kind of like a little bit of an issue here, because first, it's like a destructive change, so you can't just quickly go back. Plus, if you have clips being selected somewhere else, meaning you have maybe a drum track in between here, and you don't want to change those clips here, you only can select clips like this. Can I deselect this? Yes, and then you have to deselect the clips here. So it is possible, you know, to deselect certain clips, but it's not really if you quickly want to change stuff, I would advise you to have a look on the next chapter here, where I'm gonna start explaining a few things, how to set up multiple changes for, or having multiple global scale awareness settings, where you can actually change and define changing the scale and the arpeggiator MIDI effect here, and have this listen to certain scales you want to use. Why might you want to use just one use case? Why you might want to use different scales at the same time here? So there are actually two use cases. So for example, if I have a blues, if I'm playing a blues in C major, so if I play just quickly run through, so I might want to improvise. This is a C major scale for the blues settings here on the chord section, but on the melody side, I don't want to improvise only in C major scale. I might want to go and use the B3, the E flat here. So I actually might want to use the C blues scale here. So this is one use case. Another use case obviously is if you have a live set in Ableton Live, and you have a huge set of a lot of clips here, and you want to put in some live MIDI here and play around with your tunings live, maybe even, or maybe just have presets here. You have to be really careful, like if you changing something here, if you're just selecting a clip, you are changing for the the scale setting here, like I showed you, if you're using the scale MIDI effect here, for example, you are changing this just via selecting a different clip here if no clip is playing. So we are now here in C minor and now we are in C major just because I selected a different clip here. So if you want to go live, check out my devices which are coming later here in this video. First, I want to show you a few things, a few devices I set up for the native scale awareness thingy here. So I have a few devices which might help you to navigate a little bit quicker and to use the native scale awareness here a little bit more advanced and a little bit more extended. So first of all, we have this setting here where I already showed you. We have this monitor here which you can use to be aware of what's actually happening currently in your scale. So the next one would be automate scale awareness. So you actually have a clip here or a device here which gives you the menu. Let's put this somewhere where I don't mess up things. So let's put this on this empty MIDI track here, empty because I don't have any instruments on here. So you could have this thing here to use to automate your scales as scale awareness settings here. So you can just select this, you can MIDI map this, you can as well just set up a MIDI clip and say in the envelope section here in Ableton Live 12 it moved to here, so you could actually set up scale changes and root note changes via this device, just via a MIDI dummy clip. So you can see now when this is playing, the settings here are changing. So this is one device for the scale awareness settings. So let's have a look on the next one, which is for triggering certain things, especially via MIDI controller. So for example, you might have a few scales, you know, oh, I really like those scale settings here. You set them up and you know that you want to use those and maybe change those live. I'm going to use major, C major and minor here again. So you actually can set this up and you can trigger those settings here. So if you hit on the T here, or if you set this up, you can key map or MIDI map this. Let's quickly key map this just to show you. So if you go into the key map menu, which you can select up here or go into via the Command K function, so you can now set up keys from your computer keyboard to trigger those settings here. So if I set this up to 1 and 2, for example, I quickly gonna leave the key map menu here. So I can now select those different settings here, and you can see just by clicking somewhere or using a MIDI controller to change those settings, you can use this device here to change the scale awareness. Okay, so we have one more device for the scale awareness here, which is the circle of fifth. Let's put this on this MIDI track here as well. So, bam. So the circle of fifth is a great tool, especially for people who are starting out with music theory, to understand the relation of scales and chords here even. So, for example, in the C major harmony, you have certain chords which will work in this harmony. So you would be able to just open this window. You can make it bigger and smaller as well, change the position if you like, and you are able to click on those different chords here. So the outer circle are major chords, so, and the inner circle are minor chords. Okay, so if for example, if I'm in C, I got C, A, D, F, G. Okay, so the relation of those chords in the setting, and this is a simplified version of, well, this is like the basic version of the circle of fifth, and you can see up here it will change the scale awareness setting here, And you can monitor this obviously via the monitor here as well. Again, those are Max for Live devices. Max for Live is needed to make use of those. Follow the link in the video description if you want to find out more or if you want to buy them. Max for Live is included in Ableton Live Suite or can be bought as an add-on towards Ableton Live Standard. So just that you know, those won't work without Max for Live, so they wouldn't work with Intro, Ableton Live Intro, for example. Okay, so those are the devices for the scale awareness setting here. So what I thought and what I was excited about when scale awareness was announced was, oh cool, I want to change everything, my whole set, my whole tune quickly to a different scale setting here, and it's not possible via the native scale awareness. So I developed a few things here which I actually to some degree had already developed for Ableton Live and 10, and that's the multiple scale settings for Ableton Live, and those are making use of the scale MIDI effect. So there is a link in the video description here for this for Ableton 10 and 11. If you haven't updated yet, or if you don't want to update, you can use the technique only for the MIDI effect scale here in Ableton Live 10 and 11 as well, but that's a different pack because this pack here is for Ableton Live 12. Few things changed, so they are not compatible with each other. So I'm gonna explain this now for 12, but this is gonna work in 10 and 11 as well if you buy the 10 and 11 version of it. Okay, so how does this work? So for example, if let's get rid of our clips here, and we don't want to use the scale awareness setting here, we're using the multiple scale technique here. So one example would be you are using the scale MIDI effect. So let's set a scale MIDI effect for this piano here, and you want to make sure that the scale awareness is turned off. So what you want to use here now is one device of mine which is receiving scale settings, scale and root settings. So if we have the multiple scale receiver for the scale, and we just drag and drop this right in front of the scale device, it needs to sit right in front of the scale device you want to control. So you can see, for example, if I change the name here and if I hit refresh, bomb, it will show you the name in here. So this way you can make sure if it's connected or not. If you moved something in the middle, you know, it's like kind of like it needs to sit right in front of the scale device. So I now could have a sending device because I want to send changes to the scale receiver device here. Let's set this up here. So this is my receiving channel and this is my sending channel. So if I now change stuff in here, and it looks very similar to the plugins I just showed you for the native scale awareness, I can set up things in here. I could MIDI map those changes here so I can quickly scroll through if I want to. And if you have a look on the receiving track here, the scale changed to G sharp major, and this is what I sent from here. Okay, so again, I could set up changes here, automate the envelope section here. So if I set major and then I want to go to minor, for example, so now I automated the sending device here. You can see it's changing from major to minor. If I go to my receiving device here, you can see it's changing from major to minor. Maybe if we have G sharp, now it's major, now it's minor, it's automated, I'm playing the same notes. Yeah, but this way you are actually able to set up a lot of tracks here and even multiple tracks groups. I'm going to show you this in a second once I've gone through all the different multiple sending and receiving devices. So up to this point, the multiple scale sending and receiving, this is what I mean. I programmed this already for Ableton 10 and 11. Different pack. You will find a link in the video description. This pack here and the stuff I'm introducing now and I'm showing you now is just working on Ableton Live 12. Okay, so let's have a look on different sending settings here or different sending devices here. So I got the multiple scales, circle of fifths for this one here. So I have another one here which is actually the same like for the scale awareness, the circle of fifth, and you can see in the receiving device here it is changing as well. So the cool thing here is I could actually receive this on multiple tracks, multiple live instruments, or even on the MIDI which is being played from the clip, because it's just making use of the scale MIDI effect here, and stuff will be set to the right, or there is no right or wrong in music actually in selecting scales. In the scales you selected via a sending device. So I showed you the second option here for the sending device. I show you the third option here for the sending device, which is the multiple scale trigger one. Where is it? So I have multiple scales, sender, roots, preset, trigger. Here it is. So if we use this one here, I put this maybe on the same track here as well, just for showing purposes. So I could set up different settings here as well. And if I quickly want to change to some settings here, let's do major and major, but just C and D. So if I now hit those, you can see it's sending those over. Maybe let's do this on a MIDI track so you don't relate this to the track. So if I have those different things happening here, and again let's set this up to be on the 1 and the 2 maybe via key map, so I could trigger those. Okay, so now I'm going back to my playing track here, and you can see I'm just triggering those 1 and 2 different settings here, and it's changing the root note in this example only because both are set to major chord here. But this way you could have like a few settings you might want to change in a live set to a different setting here, or as when you're writing and you're thinking, well, something is wrong, I want to quickly try this whole set for in a different scale and maybe with a different root, you know, just like give it some spice here and just try out a few things and quickly change those things. You can have a scale MIDI effect on every MIDI track and a receiving change scale effect here in front of it, and all those scale MIDI effects then will listen to the scale changes you are applying quickly. Okay, so we have one more cool effect. Again, this effect will only work in Ableton Live 12 because it's a arpeggiator, and the arpeggiator got updated here as well. So if we set this to this device here and maybe clean out a few things, maybe let's turn off the scale stuff here. So we got the arpeggiator, which has a new design here as well in Ableton Live 12. So what's really nice is you can see the different presets and the different movements you are applying. So if I play this arpeggiator, I'm just holding a few notes down and you can see what it is doing, what kind of jumping is happening here. Maybe let's add one more step. Okay, okay, so nice. So the arpeggiator in Ableton Live 12 is one of the MIDI effects which can be set to listen to the scale awareness as well. But with those issues I mentioned earlier in this video. So what I developed here as well is this multiple receiving device for the scale arpeggiator here. So if we go, and this is part of the full pack here, so you can see quite a lot of devices in here, which might be interesting for you. If you want to check them out, there is a link in the video description. Okay, so we have a receiving device, multiple scale receiving, multiple scales arpeggiator receiver. So same as for the scale MIDI effect, you need to place it in front of the arpeggiator you want to control. Okay, and you can set this up for how many tracks you like. Okay, so this is not limited here. So now I could actually control this arpeggiator and the scale and root setting of this arpeggiator, of multiple arpeggiators, just via the different sending devices here. So maybe let's do a C major and minor, and I can trigger those live via my 1 and 2. So let's get the monitor into place again. Where's the monitor? So I found the monitor because it's a different device than for the monitor scale awareness, which I showed earlier. So if you're using the native scale awareness here, introduced in Ableton Live 12, you want to use the monitor scale awareness. If you are using this technique I'm at now, you want to use the monitor multiple scale and root, which looks the same. Root, and let's make it a little bit bigger so you can see now if I'm hitting my 1 and 2, which I mapped to this one here. I'm triggering those different scales so I can quickly change scales here. And now those scales are being received via this device, and this device is setting the arpeggiator right after it. So now if I play C major chord, it's now minor, and now if I'm hitting my 1, you know, it's going back to that one. So if I'm, I still have some automations running here. I'm just seeing this. Interesting. So I was doing this via automations and live as well on the same time. Nothing you should do, but this is one example on how you should be clear about what and where you're changing stuff, and the monitor device is actually quite good for you to help you with that. So we have the circle of fifth, which I showed you earlier for the scale awareness stuff. We got this in here as well, so I could actually use this one here. Maybe let's set this below, so we have this one here now, and we have the monitor right beneath that. So I could actually select the different not tunings, scales. Thanks to Niels reminding me of that we're not talking about tunings here, we're talking about scale and root settings here. So we have this for the arpeggiator, and we can see at the bottom here C major is now being selected. If I select A minor in the circle of fifth, Max for Live device here, it will change this. It will send this over to the receiving arpeggiator device, and the arpeggiator will apply this to the arpeggiator next to it. So this way I could actually cycle through different chord settings here. So if I play maybe one little more complex chords here, and then switching to something, plays those different scale and root settings here via the circle of fifth, might be exciting for people who are starting out with music theory to get a little bit of an idea how stuff is related. Circle of fifth is a resource which you can find a lot of information on the web for. Okay. So, have we covered all the devices? Quite a few devices here, so let us have a look. We have covered all the scale awareness stuff, and I think we have covered all the multiple scale sending and receiving devices here. So now, if you want to set up multiple sending and receiving groups, you are actually able to do this. So for example, if we just duplicate the tracks here, so we now have this one track playing one sound, we have another track playing the sound, or having MIDI clips playing MIDI notes, MIDI clips with MIDI notes here. If they are playing, if they go through the scale device here, they will be repitched to the scale which is selected here. So maybe let's set this up for both tracks. Maybe let's delete this one here and duplicate this one here again. So now we have, let's call the sound 1 and we have sound 2. And we actually want to set up not only one scale and root setting here, we want to change multiple scale and root settings here. And we are able to do this via sending those changes on different pipes here. Okay, so let's make this a little bit cleaner, and maybe let's get rid of the stuff we don't need. We don't want to play the sounds now, so we just want to have sound 1 as an example 1, and this could be multiple tracks here, even as a group. And we're gonna have a sound 2 track here, which is receiving MIDI changes, root and scale changes here. When we have set this up on a second, I call this scale pipe. Okay, so the concept of scale pipes, what does it mean? So we have, for example, let's open up a second MIDI monitor here, and all those multiple scale devices have one parameter here. If you duplicate Max for Live devices, especially some pop-up stuff will look a little bit weird, so you might want to make sure to have a clean install and not duplicate stuff here like I just did. Clean install would mean taking it from your user library. If you have installed those, let's quickly do this. So we want to install and have a second monitoring scale device in here. So we want to monitor multiple scales, drag and drop this in here, bam, and the window now is fine. Okay, so we have 2 of those devices now, because we're gonna send on 2 different pipes, on 2 different virtual connections the devices are making in the background. So the first one here, let's maybe put this up to the top, is scale pipe 1, and the second one is scale pipe 2. And if we change this, here the top bar will reflect the name. So scale pipe 2 is now the one, and this one is monitoring scale pipe 1. So if we have, for example, this one is scale awareness trigger, we want this one here. Scale awareness, we want, where are all my devices? And let's get those devices from the user library here. So let's say we're gonna use the multiple scale sender, and we want to have 2 of those because we want to send on 2 different pipes here now. They could sit anywhere where you like, on any MIDI track you like. You just need to define those. So this one should send changes, scale and root changes to scale pipe 1, and the second one should send scale pipe changes on the pipe 2. Scale changes on the pipe 2. So if we now have those different monitor devices, you can see that the first one is changing if I change stuff here, and the second one is changing stuff if I change stuff on the sending device, which is actually sitting, not sitting, which is being set to send stuff, changes on scale pipe 2. Okay, so back to our receiving tracks here. So now we're gonna make sure that the scale pipe here on the first track is receiving the receiving scale MIDI device here is receiving on scale pipe 1, and on number 2, on the track 2, we want to have this to listen to the scale pipe number 2. Okay, so now if I change stuff in and sending changes over to scale pipe 1, only devices which are set to listen to scale pipe 1 will change this. So on my track 2, nothing changed because I need to send changes on a device which is sending on the scale pipe 2. So if I now change stuff here, let's do a G major, for example. I got my nice monitor here. So now on sound 2, this is receiving those changes here in the scale device. So that might be a bit overwhelming at the beginning. But imagine like this, you have a big Ableton Live set and you want to play with this live, and you only want certain tracks to change the scale live and to be able to manipulate or to change the scales live. So you have those different sending devices here I just showed you, and you are able to set only certain tracks to receive those changes and only certain tracks with the right scale pipe receiving settings to change those settings for the MIDI scale device here or for the MIDI arpeggiator effect here. Okay, so this way you can set up multiple global scale and root settings here and change those over time. Obviously, this is a different technique here than the native scale awareness setting. You can do stuff like this only for one thing in the scale awareness setting here, and you have to keep in mind for scale awareness you are always communicating from the MIDI clips up to the global setting here, so you need to have MIDI clips being set up if you don't want effects to listen to stuff. And this way, that's why I introduced, or I'm showing you here, a technique I developed with this multiple scale sending and receiving devices here. I hope that makes sense. So have a look in the video description. You will find the links there. Again, those are Max for Live devices. Max for Live is needed to make use of those. Okay, so that's one technique here. Obviously you need to decide for yourself and you need to find out like what makes sense, what is the right use case, or what is my use case and what technique should I take or I shouldn't touch. So Ableton Live is used in so many different ways, and that's the beauty about it. Customization is key for Ableton Live here, and developing people like me being able to develop different techniques here for some users. Okay, so this is not like, definitely not something which is going to be used by everyone who's using Ableton Live, obviously, but the whole scale awareness setting, how Ableton implemented it in Ableton Live 12 at this point, can lead in some use cases, can lead to some confusion here about how to change scales, how to set scales, and for a lot of use cases this is just not the way on how to change scales. Okay, so for production, yes, if you're just starting out and you know you want to write this tune and this music you are just working on in this Ableton Live set to this particular scale, nice. If you want to change the scale afterwards, scale awareness is a little bit tricky to do. You need to be aware of what your MIDI clips are being set to, and if you want MIDI effects to listen to changes, or if you don't want them to listen to changes, or if you want them to listen to some changes and maybe to some changes not, so you need to define if a MIDI clip is playing or not. So again, the whole scale awareness is not really made for changing stuff afterwards, I think so. So if you are interested about finding a way on how to change stuff afterwards, have a look here on my devices. Cool, nice one, take care, bye bye.